Well, welcome to the second panel of the day for the Centre Court Specialised Masters Festival. I need these admissions panels as much as you, the viewers. You know, as I look at the extraordinary demand that we have seen for a complete range of specialised masters that go from management, finance, business analytics, all the way through to climate change and creative media marketing. I don't think that I would get in if I was applying today. And so to be able to bring in voices of encouragement and wisdom is obviously a key part of this panel. And we've got a great group for this next session. I'm delighted to welcome Francisco Chabran. It's lovely to see you again, Francisco. Francisco is the Director of International Development at the IE Business School, based out of the East Coast for obviously the campus in Madrid. And IE has got a great range of dual degrees. You'll be talking, I think, about all of those different options. Coming in from London and that wonderful part of South Kensington and all the museums, Stephen Tugneri, who is a Senior Admissions Manager at Imperial College Business School. Great to have you with us, Stephen. We have Sophie Boutet. Sophie is an International Admissions Manager for the EDHEC Business School that has several campuses across France. You even have locations, I guess, in London and elsewhere. And Dan Spaker, who is the Assistant Director of the range of MS programs at Columbia Business School. So, wow, we've got 4 panelists, 4 regions of the world, and great to have you all with us. Now, Francisco, you know, I sort of introduced this saying that despite this being a challenging year, demand for specialized masters is going through the roof. Now, you've got an incredible range at IE. What have you seen in just sort of the last 5-6 months in terms of global demand for your programs?
Yeah, I think that as you mentioned, Matt, particularly we've had quite a, I would say, maybe I call it a growth or a surge in interest and people enrolling in our specialized master's programs. A wide variety of them, some more successful than others, but I would say some in particular that have stood out to me would be like our master's in big data and business analytics, as well as our master's in finance program. And then also you see quite a lot of interest as well in our, you know, what we call our Marcom portfolio, right? So that's going to be our Masters in Visual and Digital Media, Masters in Market Research and Consumer Behavior, and also quite a strong interest also in our School of Global Public Affairs Specialized Masters, the Masters in International Relations and the Masters in International Development. I know we'll get into this a little bit more a little bit later on during the panel, but I think there's very specific reasons for that interest in these specialized master's programs. I think that folks are looking for a lot more kind of really laser focused targeted career opportunities. And I think they feel like these specialized master's programs will really set them up for success in that regard. But we can go into that a little bit more later on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, whether we're looking at the future of finance, a world of big data, or creative industries, I guess, and digital transformation, certainly that choice between staying general with a master's in management or this ability to really take a very specific career step forward. Stephen, I was looking at some of the numbers from Imperial for your biz analytics. I used to think that Stanford's MBA was pretty selective to get into. In fact, it's the most selective MBA on the planet, but your numbers are off the charts for a program of 80 or 90 students. What's really driving the demand that you're seeing for the range of MSc programs at Imperial?
Yeah, I think it is that there is a great deal of choice of different master's programs you can take at Imperial. We've seen growth from India and USA, as well as our more traditional markets. And the business analytics program in particular, as you said, is one that's really been very popular. We also have MSc Financial Technology. And these new MSCs, fairly new to us, are really resonating with the need in the market for trained professionals in that area. And the career prospects are great from those, and people can see that, and they want to apply.
Yeah, no, I'd like to spend time talking about sort of what comes next in those career options. And if you have any students that can explain to me cryptocurrency in 30 seconds or less, and that I actually understand, I would be very grateful. Stephen talks to that international demand, and whether from North America, from Asia. Sophie, the sort of specialized masters. This has been Europe's playground, and EDHEC obviously is one of the top schools there. Is it that now everyone's waking up to all these great different opportunities, specialized masters? The MFin, the MIM, Biz Analytics, and others.
The MIM for sure. It's actually one of the top program where the interest is getting into, because many students that are interested in getting a specialized master but cannot really join an MSc directly because they don't have the prerequisites or they don't have yet the skills to get into. For example, we do have an MSc in data analytics, but if we have a student that really is interested in getting into it but don't have that foundation or the basics first, they will join the MIM program, and the MIM to get in that first year, that foundation. And indeed, we have part of the Indian market, a lot of engineer students tend to join our MIM program to then choose their specialization in the final year. And with that situation, it was actually the opposite. Like, we normally tend to have, of course, a lot of international students, but we got a lot more French students as well, because they were not able to travel outside of France or Europe. Quite a lot more from the UK, I'll say, as well, and as well like Asia, but definitely India.
Right, and I guess that's sort of not only the international campus it creates for you, but they're enjoying real mobility then in the next steps of their career. Well, we'll talk about some of those post-career outcomes. Dan, it's always a great time to go to Columbia Business School, and I guess in a couple of years, if the pandemic hasn't slowed down the building plans, you and your colleagues from the MBA will all be filling up that wonderful new campus. That can't happen soon enough, can it, with the sort of demand you're seeing for some of the MS programs?
Yeah, that's right. They actually are still going forward with that construction now, so hopefully that timeline should be similar, which we're bursting at the seams here in our Morningside campus, so that would be fantastic. Yeah, last year we saw almost, marketing program was up almost 30%. Finance went up slightly. The accounting went up slightly. I think the unique thing about the programs at CBS is they're sort of mixing specialized master's programs where all three of these groups will come together for something like machine learning or AI. And then you're mixing that with specific PhD curriculum and MBA curriculum. Sort of made for a really demanding program. We've seen applications increase over the years steadily.
Right. Well, so this idea of specializing, and I mean, you talk about how you sort of mix up and classes that are drawn together. Francisco, for a group, we've often in the Centre Court Festival focused on the full-time MBA. So individuals perhaps at the next stages in their career, late 20s, early 30s. But as you look at the audience for your specialized master's program, this is what, in the first year or two out of college, university, and trying to give a real sense of impetus now to the career steps that they're following?
Right. So I think for our specialized programs in general, so we have two audiences, right? And one audience that we're seeing a little bit more of now than we would have seen in the past because of certain things that are going on with the economy. But I would say in general, the first kind of audience or target audience that we see for our specialized master's programs is those folks coming straight out of undergraduate, right? So you have your recent grads, maybe some of them, we like to say they have between 0 and 2 years of experience, right? They may have got some internships or different things like that, but for the most part, they're coming straight out of undergraduate and they have a very laser focus in terms of where they want to go with their career. And they're not looking to do a generalist degree. They're going to do, they want that, data analytics job at Spotify or at Facebook, and they're going to go do that master's of business analytics and big data in order to help them get there. I would say the other group that we do see quite a bit of, and I think it's something exciting and it's great to have a mix of both kind of groups in these specialized master's programs, is I would say that those folks who are about 3 to 4 years into their career, and they're realizing that they really need to upskill in a certain area, right? They have a need that they're like, okay, I've been working maybe in a more general type of position or in this area a little bit, but I really want to do that master's in finance because I've been working at the Inter-American Development Bank, Washington D.C., and I want that next job, but in order to do it, I really need to get this skill set to get there. So I would say that those are the two groups that we see in general for these programs. And I would just say that in general, given the current state of the economy and the job market, we've seen an increase in both those categories of folks coming to us looking for that type of training.
Right, right. So if it's that accelerator, Stephen, and you know, a real deep dive into analytics or some of the perhaps broader programs, as you then look at the academic mix, are there certain undergrad profiles that are better suited, or the sort of quant skills, STEM backgrounds that you're looking for in particular programs, whereas others remain fairly eclectic?
Yes, so for the ones that's our finance suite, we have a range of finance programs, and the business analytics programs, which are looking at data analysis. You do need to have very good quant skills and programming skills in some cases. So for those, we'll be looking for undergraduates in that area. But we have a lot of other programs that are much more open. Strategic marketing, you don't have to have done marketing beforehand, so we look for a range of different places there. And we also have our a management, MSc management, and a MIM program, Masters in International Management. And again, we might be looking for a business background for our MIM program and a non-business background for our other one. And then there's lots of other, we have an economics and strategy for business program, and a range of other ones, and there'll be some have prerequisites and others don't. So there's something for everyone there.
Right. With that idea of choice, I mean, Sophie, at the age of 21, 20, I'm not even sure if I know what I want to do now, but certainly at 21, I was all over the map. When you're having that sort of initial dialogue with individuals, and given the range of programs, how do you, what's that discussion like as you look to sort of see where they're looking to head, next steps? I mean, Francisco said some are laser focused, they know, and they want that next position. But I guess, I mean, you're helping them to find the right fit.
We do, and actually it's funny, like I relate to exactly what Francisco says and Stephen about having prerequisites or having students that comes to you and saying, this is the program I want to do. Some students have done the research, they know the core modules, they even know that they will need prerequisites, and they're showing to you with the transcripts, and they're really ready to apply. But you have students that knows, or maybe the path of the sector they would like to work in, or an idea of just saying, well, I would like to work in management, but that's all. So because we have so many programs also to offer, I understand it would be hard for students when we have 3 Master in Management and 14 MSc to know, okay, which program will be the best fit for me. So of course, having someone for the admission, international admissions, part of my job is to, first of all, understand what his career objective, what he's studying so far, and also by looking at, you know, what he's done, his transcripts and what he's been studying, to also see which program, first of all, he could be eligible for. The MIM program will be most of the time a good fit for a student that has no working experience. For example, wish to join a program related to business, or would like to specialize, but don't really have the knowledge for it, haven't worked in a business before. And we also explain to students that the difference with the MIM and an MSc, for example, that they cannot expect to, you know, apply to a senior position after you complete an MSc if you actually have no previous working experience, and you will also be in competition with other students that would have 3-4 years of working experience in that field. So of course, a part of our job is to take them step by step and help them, guide them through what will be the right program for them, and also which one will be the best fit, but also considering what they've studied so far to see which one will be eligible for them.
Right. Your colleagues in the MBA, Dan, have taken part in a Forbes ranking for over 20 years now, where the entire focus was about ROI. Inevitably, that's a question for anyone, you know, looking at the range of MS programs available at Columbia Business School. As you look through those different options, I mean, what is the ROI of some of these programs? You have great career prospects, graduates coming out of these programs.
Absolutely. You know, we get a host of people with different aspirations, like everyone's saying. In our program in particular, like, we'll even have, say, 20% of them who are maybe looking to have a career in research, you know, to focus more on those PhD things. Maybe they're looking to do a PhD down the road. We see that from time to time. In addition to the people going into the industry, you know, our masters in financial economics, these guys are very technical, very quantitative. They're in the big banks here in New York, right? the accounting guys can come from varied backgrounds and then sort of transition into a career in finance. The marketing analytics guys, some of them are coming from psychology backgrounds even, you know, and we're teaching them some quant skills so they can do the big data analysis. They can end up at the tech companies. So it's really, you're able to transition through that pretty nicely, I think, with the help of our Career Management Center, which you guys probably know a little bit about, having dealt with MBA.
Yeah, I often think that the career management team, it's part of the magic of the business school experience. And often when you talk to alums, it's like, oh, those guys, they really helped me with the sort of, you know, just unlocking potential and the path that they've taken. Francisco, JFK was famous for how quickly he could talk. Now, you're a very quick talker too. When you slow down with a candidate and you're just sitting there and, you know, they're in this sort of period of reflection, what makes sense for me at the next steps? Are there 2 or 3 questions that you encourage them to then sort of go away and think about that will really, you know, provide clarity? I mean, you have, again, so many different options. You've shared some of them. You know, what are 2 or 3 questions that you think people should be asking themselves?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for the comparison to JFK, right? The biggest honor that I've received on any Zoom call recently, so appreciate that. Not sure if it's warranted, but anyways, I'll take it. That being said, when I'm having those conversations with students, and you have them often, I think, as we all do, no? Because sometimes, you know, we have a range of conversations with these folks, no? And some folks, you know, it's pretty cut and dry, and you're like, okay, this person has really done their research, they've thought about this, they know what they want to do, and sometimes it's not so clear, no? And I think all of us, we feel a responsibility to not only, you know, in our roles to serve as kind of, at least I do personally, serve as like an advisor and a mentor to these people, right? And help guide them in the right direction, because we all know that, you know, the best thing for our brand, for our universities is happy alumni, right? And so that starts on the recruiting side of things. So we want to make sure that we're sending people in the right direction so that they're happy and successful when they graduate. So I usually tell people, I mean, I try to get people to tell me their story, right? I'm a storyteller, you know, and so I ask people to tell me their story as to, you know, where are you coming from? You know, what did you study? What professional experience have you had? Where are you trying to go, and where do you see a program at IE fitting into that mix, right? And so what I'm really looking for is that cohesive story, right? So saying, okay, you know, they did this, they come from these places, they want to come do this at IE, and they're looking to hopefully be able to leverage this degree when they graduate in order to be able to accomplish these things. And so for me, I'm trying to help them figure out all of those puzzle pieces so that story actually makes sense. So that's usually the dialogue that I have with people, and that's just kind of a tip or an advice that I give people in general to kind of think about framing their application for any master's program or MBA program, you know, to really throughout your application, you know, make sure that you're telling that story, right? The narrative arc of your life, right? Where are you coming from? Where are you trying to go? How can we help you? And what do you hope to accomplish?
Right. Well, we're going to break down, I guess, GREs, storytelling, recommenders, all of those different pieces. Stephen Dan referenced New York. Of course he would. He's at Columbia Business School, and you know, whether it's contacts with banks or, you know, marketing agencies, you know, that plays a role. As you look at climate change, global phenomenon, as you look at data analytics in healthcare and you know, a world pandemic, does the location of a business school then make a difference in terms of those careers and the opportunities that you might then be deploying on a global scale? Stephen, that was for you.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Yes. Yeah.
Great question. I hope he's not asking me.
Well, London is a huge selling point. It is one of the key things that people are, you know, keen to get involved with, because it is a huge financial centre. There's a lot going on in entrepreneurial innovation world, and yeah, climate change, as you say. So, and it certainly, you know, affects the faculty that want to live and work in or nearby, and who are therefore involved. And yeah, it does affect the opportunities that are there. So being right on the financial centre's doorstep has a big impact on all of our programs. We have practitioners that come into, not just, you know, all the lecturers are active researchers, but they're often active actually in business, in finance, in the different fields. So they're available to come in. Obviously people are a bit more available now because we can do Zoom things, but so it does, physical location does have that effect.
Right, and that's sort of reflected, as you mentioned, whether it's guest speakers, and as you look at the sort of career opportunities that your graduates then follow, it starts from London and just radiates out from there.
Yes, certainly, and lots of because we like I'm sure most of us here, most of our students are international students, and we have, you know, obviously there are some from the UK, but most people are international, and a lot of people will want to get, you know, maybe 2 to 3 years work experience in London or in the UK, and then often, very often, take that either back home or expand into a, you know, a global career from there. But certainly, yeah, we place a lot of people in the UK.
Right. For that international component, Sophie, I mean, it's very much, you know, part of you as a school. You've also got multiple campuses and do research, you know, with faculty in different parts of the world. So what does that bring to the experience when you sort of, when students have actually been in the program for 3-4 months, do they sort of come back and say, yeah, we talked, it was about international, but I didn't realize that it would be this rewarding, or, you know, the interaction that we're having, is it really something that strikes home once you start the program?
Yeah, well, I think we do have 5 campuses, but the 2 main campuses are in Lille and in Nice, which are the 2 academic campuses. So the MIM and MSc student will go to Lille for the business program, in Nice for the finance program. Paris, London, and Singapore, it's more executive program. So it's some program, it's actually not my department that are in charge of it, but students even coming to France, of course, it's what they love also about studying at EDHEC is that they studying in English but living the French life. And it's funny that I actually talked to one of my American students that now back in US and found a job, and we was chatting, and he was saying that what he was missing the most was the French croissant and the French living, the French life. So it was quite funny. But yeah, I think they love also being mixed with other international students, students being on the same campus, but students coming from India, China, from Canada, from the US, from the UK, from Morocco, from many places, and they're all together in the same class. It brings many different cultures, but they can share the same things together. Students can also do sightseeing while they're in Nice, for example. They can travel. It's quite also easy being in Europe. Well, of course, now it could be a little bit more complicated, but it's quite nice also for students that they're not used to travel so easily. And being in Nice, for example, which is one of the biggest airport in France, the school is right in front of the airport, and you can travel so easily. You can go to stay in France, but go to many capitals in Europe. And it's I think one thing that they definitely like about coming to EDHEC, living in France, but also be able to travel and see what's around.
When I talk to alumni from all of your schools, there's an extraordinary energy. There's a wonderful sense of, you know, purpose, you know, what we can do, what we can achieve, you know, even in the current pandemic and situation. But I do sometimes hear, Dan, from some of the individuals, they said, you know, when I first looked at the school, you know, Ivy League University, among the M7 business schools, wow, you know, is there a place for me at Columbia? Because it must be super selective. And they start to look at your incoming class stats and test scores, or even the age, and they say, well, if I'm not 23, you know, am I? So how do you sort of, you know, those class profiles can actually be quite reductive. How do you then ensure that people don't talk themselves out of applying to Columbia, saying to themselves, hey, it's going to be beyond me?
Yeah, we actually run into that quite a bit, you know. Wonderful candidates who don't think they're wonderful candidates. The thing is, you know, we're looking at these admissions holistically. We're not making cutoffs on test scores or what school you went to or what your GPA is. You know, if you think this is something you can do, you should look into doing it. Give us a call. You know, reach out to us. I'm happy. I'm on calls all day with applicants. Some of them will go into engineering or something else, but I'm happy to try and guide everyone. I think there's always a place for everyone, and our admission rates are going to be what they are. That's in large part, you're in New York, you know, you're getting just a lot of people flocking, but that doesn't mean it's not right for you if you're not the ideal candidate. That your story, like Francisco mentioned, the story is really important. And you don't have to be perfect in every aspect. There's so many different ways to be a great candidate. I think a lot more people are qualified than think they are.
Do you, of course, graduation ceremonies across the world were all virtual this year, but I mean, do you have your own personal memories, Dan, of seeing someone at graduation that you remember speaking to 2 years before, who perhaps doubted their potential, and yet they made it? Here they are, graduate. I mean, if you're offering them a place, you see that potential in them, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I had a kind of funny student. He was a Chinese student, and he went by the name 100. That was his sort of nickname with all the other students. And he graduated, and he told me, he said, "Oh man, I never thought I was going to make it here. I think from now on, I'm going to ask everyone to call me 1,000."
The inflation is becomes in. That's great. With the MBA, I guess there was a fairly linear relationship, Francisco, in terms of, right, I'm going to get discounted cash, but there's all of that sort of quant in the core curriculum. Now, as we look at the range of specialized masters, pre-experienced masters that you have, how the GRE or the GMAT then kind of line up, because some of them I assume are going to be far more quant driven. Stephen mentioned that earlier for the analytics program. So any sort of advice around those standardized tests and how you're using them as just one part of that admissions puzzle?
Yeah, sure. So controversial subject, entrance exams. I could probably go on for a while and leave some hot takes here, but I'll probably avoid that today and not be controversial. But I mean, at IE, we accept a wide range of entrance exams. So for our different programs, right? So for most of our programs, we accept the GRE and the GMAT, and we also offer our own test, which is called the IE Global Admissions Test, as an alternative. We're agnostic in terms of, for most programs, I should say, we're agnostic in terms of which entrance exam that we accept. We see them all pretty much equally. I do think, as you're mentioning, Matt, though, there are some specific, there are some really specific ones that we're looking for at GMAT. For example, our Master's in Finance program, it is required that you submit a GMAT for that program. And I would say as well, although not necessary when you're looking at something like our our Master's in Computer Science or our Master's in Business Analytics and Big Data, I would say that if you're going towards a more quantitative program, although in general we're agnostic and look at applications holistically, I mean, if you're coming at that program, with the 750 or 760 GMAT score, definitely not going to hurt your application. But I would say in general at IE, aside from those kind of two specific programs or three specific programs that I mentioned, we're open in terms of entrance exams. And well, yeah, and I personally have my thoughts about them, but we'll leave that for another time.
Right. Well, I mean, the idea of 750, if you have that sort of score, put it in front of them. A question's coming, Dan, specific to Columbia, I guess, looking at other programs within the business school where it was optional or there were waivers. The school has obviously shown great flexibility given testing conditions, online testing, and everything else. What are your current policies? And if there are sort of waivers, would it still behove a candidate to try to secure a competitive score?
Yeah, right now regarding waivers, we're not offering a waiver on the GMAT GRE. We are taking the at-home versions of those, or if you have one that's older, we do want to see that. You can submit an application without it, have a future test date. We're willing to even look at people submitting them after the deadline. We'll take a look at you, give you some feedback on your application before. So if you're someone who doesn't feel like you're going to have the ability to get it, I would say go ahead and apply, reach out to me directly. We'll have a conversation about your application and what sort of you would want to target on the exam given your background and your transcripts and your history.
Right. So there's always the opportunity for that dialogue, and presumably, Stephen, there are plenty of other ways, as Francisco alluded to, beyond a standardized test. When you're looking to see a level of quant skills, that could be undergrad, but I mean, they're also sort of like a stats or a calculus class that you could take at Berkeley Extension or Imperial Extension. I don't know if what you then offer, but there are other ways to show you guys that they've got the quant chops that they need.
Yeah, for us, there's only one of our master's programs that we require GMAT or GRE on, which is our Master's International Management program. And then for the ones where we're looking for that quantability, we were looking at the transcript. So we really want to see that it's a high level degree level quantitative subjects that they've taken and done well in. If we would suggest that a GMAT or GRE would be a good option for somebody that maybe they might have the quant skills, but they don't have it showing in their transcript, like they could have done a bit more of a more generalist undergraduate degree. And so that would be good. And as Francisco said, you know, a great score in those tests is always going to strengthen your application, but for us it's not required. And yeah, we look at the application holistically. So we're looking at the references, the personal statement, you know, and again, as Francisco said, we are looking for that story. We want to see that people have thought about what career basically they want and how our program is going to help them get there, and what their motivation and passion is to really, you know, grab the opportunity and take it to reach their goals.
Now, sharing with you what career they want at that early stage, and there will be those that have things mapped out, but this is going to be an extraordinary year or 2 years of exploration, you know, very open-minded, talented, diverse group of classmates. You could end up working in fintech in Shoreditch, you could end up, you know, tackling climate change, so many different options. But so to what extent are you, what are you looking for in that post-master's narrative? Just that it's coherent and thoughtful, there's a level of maturity there?
Yeah, we understand that plans can change, and that that they will, because they are, you know, they're coming in, they're meeting lots of new people, lots of ideas will be bouncing around. But if you don't have a plan and you haven't thought about it and researched what kind of options could be open to you, especially on a 1-year master's that we offer, then you'll be slower. You can't hit the ground running. A lot of the recruiting that will be done by the big companies will be done when they're on the program, and they might not want to wait, you know, until they finished it and miss all of that. But certainly, yes, we want people who are really thinking about it. They've done some internships, so they've understood what they like, what they don't like, what they're looking for, and then those plans can change over time. But at least they've had a good think about it beforehand.
Right, so it's not analytics manager, Watson, IBM, boom, boom, boom. You know, there's room for maneuver. Francisco had framed it as storytelling, Sophie. As we compare with, again, perhaps the MBA, this is very often an audience a little bit earlier in their, you know, that they're either applying to you, I guess, in senior year of college or university, or perhaps, you know, they've got a year. First of all, I suppose, is there a limit of how many years professional experience they can have in applying either to the MIM, to the Masters in Finance, or any of your other specialized masters?
You're talking about age or working
Age.
experience?
Yeah. Well, I suppose the two.
Well, it's kind of combined, but it's more the type, I think what Francisco was saying as well, it's the type of profile will be different. For example, for the MBA program that we have at EDHEC and the MIM and MSc, it's not the same. I have sometimes students in the US, like 21, 22 years old, saying, yeah, I want to join the MBA. I'm like, okay, well, here is slightly different. The type of profile that we have, like students applying to MIM and MSc are pre-experienced programs. So it would be, the average age would be 21, between 21 and 23. Of course, we have students that can, you know, apply like 26, 27, but I will say that over 29, for a MIM, we'll probably redirect that student to an MSc directly or an MBA, because that students will already have more than 4 or 5 years of working experience, and it won't be the same. Like there'll be a huge gap in the class, and it's not in the MIM, it's not what we're looking for. And also for the students, I mean, it's quite rare to have a student being 30 and asking for the MIM. They usually go straight for an MBA. But for an MSc program, it's also the same thing. If a student is 20 with no working experience, we may suggest him the MIM, or trying to explain the difference and see the type of profile and what he will learn during the first year, and how the gap year between the first year of the MIM and the MSc, because it's a double degree, how we also help the students getting that missing working experience compared to a student joining right away an MSc program being 25 and already having 2 or 3 years of working experience. But yes, of course, at some point, if I have a students being like over 35, 40 and asking me information about an MSc, we will redirect that students to our MBA team, where he can actually choose a specialization within the MBA, but at least the type of profile and students, they will look probably for the same thing in the MBA than what the student is looking for being in the NIM or MSc.
Now, with the world being turned upside down, I think that's a moderate way of putting it. Often people will have done summer internships, and Francisco, in their resumes, they talk about whether working in finance or some NGO or multinational, whatever. This summer, that was tough. And any words of perhaps reassurance to the next generation of applicants, where maybe all of those summer internship plans folded? The world's been a very challenging environment. You understand, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's by challenging, it's challenging. We always do our best to tell people reassuring things these days, right? In any context. But we try our best, and I think what I like to see from folks is, I was talking with a candidate a couple of weeks ago about one of our programs, and they were telling me they flipped the script on the pandemic. They said, I want this summer for me to be about not what the pandemic took from me, but what I took from it. And I really appreciated that outlook. I think that's what we're looking for in people. We understand that not all of the same opportunities are available for any of us that they normally are. No, but what we really want to see is that folks who have gotten creative and innovative and found ways to continue to grow and improve as professionals, because although all the traditional opportunities are not available, you would be surprised, and I think we've all seen this both in terms of the candidates that we're working with, but also people in our professional network, how people have taken this opportunity to do online coursework or to do training in Python or to do all of these different, so there's different ways that you can kind of upskill and learn and take advantage of this time at home, spend more time on Duolingo, get your language certificate. So I think that those are the type of things that we're looking to see. Like we get it, all the same summer internship programs aren't there that might not necessarily be in, but what else did you do? So I think that we're looking for people to get creative and find other ways to shine during these challenging times.
Right. So watching the entire Michael Jordan series on Netflix wouldn't cut it, as interesting as that was.
That's mandatory. You got to do that first, but then after you can get out all the other things I talked about.
Yeah, and then I set up this really lucrative second-hand selling of basketball boots, Air Jordans and the rest. Dan, obviously there's academic rigor in the program, but it's often at the bottom of a resume where you see the not the fun stuff, but the passions, the hobbies, the community engagement. How does that matter to the sort of assessment? Because they're becoming part of your community at Columbia Business School. So are there any sort of either patterns of behavior or just a sense of, the rounded individual and what they do with their free time?
Yeah, absolutely. For us, we get a lot of academically strong candidates from quantitative backgrounds. So you'll see a lot of them in the Math Olympics, and they're in a programming club, and a lot of things I think with programming languages, as it's becoming almost like a requirement to do any of these specialized master's degrees, a lot of them didn't have any of this training in undergrad specifically. And you see a lot of them having this, as you're saying, in the bottom line of a resume. Hey, for fun, I like to program in Python or R, and I wrote a sports betting algorithm, using this computer programming language. And these sort of like what to me don't seem like hobbies, but to them they are. And I think those are useful in the admissions process. And we can sometimes say, okay, they might not have this, what would be like a required class, but it is one of their hobbies. Let's talk to them a little bit, see how deeply they know this. Could that supplant a prerequisite or something like that? So yeah, I think all of those things are very interesting, as well as their normal average Joe hobbies that fit into student club atmospheres and things like that.
Right. I mean, you're already down at R in the alphabet. I'm not even at C, let alone C++ on the alphabet. I suppose, beyond that, we often talk about that community. And as you think about what they will contribute outside of the Columbia classroom, are you then, looking for other sort of characteristics that sort of say, hey, you know, this is going to be a very engaged member of our community?
Absolutely. We try to look at, you know, like everyone here, our students are pretty young, between 24 and 25-ish. Postgraduate, what have you done? You know, we all know in college it's a sort of a structured environment for your interest in the clubs, you know, but after that, what have you done? Sort of give back? Have you done anything else with your school as an alumni? We look in that direction.
Right, right. Now, there are other voices that then provide additional insight and perspective, Stephen. Is it a mix of, yeah, professional if you've had an internship, but we also want a professor, an academic, perhaps writing a letter of reference or recommendation? And how do they go beyond a transcript? You know, we can see if you performed well in that econ class, what might you be looking for the recommender to share?
Yeah, so we do require that one of the references, we ask for two, and one of them has to be from an academic that knows them well. So ideally like a supervisor of their final project or something like that. And yes, it can really, you know, shine a light on them, so they can talk about their performance that we can see on the transcript, but we can also find out a little bit about, you know, how proactive they are, you know, how much they might have worked with others in the class. That might also come through in the references. And the professional reference, you know, can do the same. Obviously, some referees are a bit, you know, briefer than others, so we might not get very much from that. So what we're going back to the previous points that we are looking for on the CV and in the personal statement and things. Things about maybe about leadership. So, or that if you've got a hobby, that's great. Put that down. But tell us. Often, you know, people might have done a bit more with it. So they like football, so they play football in the team, and they write a blog about it. And they started a club that was that didn't exist in their university, or things like that. So that we understand what your interests are, and we can see that you're the kind of person that really gets into that, and, you know, takes it as far as it can go.
Right, right. So yeah, that sort of texture and depth, I guess, in terms of the impact that they've had. But I mean, if you approach a recommender, an academic or otherwise, and they sort of wave you away and say, yes, I've written many letters of recommendation, I know exactly what, any sort of advice you would then give a viewer in terms of, in approaching a recommender, obviously you want enthusiasm and support, but should they look to sort of identify, say, it would be really helpful beyond that brevity if you could speak about this, or you know, just to give them a sense of what's going to be helpful for you as an admissions office to make your assessments?
I don't know. I think that could be difficult in trying to coach the referee. I think that they should, I'm sure most people would do this, but they'll think carefully about who they're going to ask. And as I say, it should be someone that does know them well. So hopefully, you know, they'll have the relationship with someone. They can explain, you know, what they're doing, how important it is to them. And you should always, you know, ask permission first and explain what you're trying to get out of it. And then I think there should be a good outcome in terms of the reference produced.
Right. Now, Sophie, when you offer an interview, clearly you like what you've seen in the application, and perhaps this is a generation that didn't need to download Zoom the way I did 7 months ago, because, you know, they've lived a big portion of their lives digitally in the last years anyway. But I assume that virtual interviews are a reality for the months ahead. What sort of advice would you give at that moment? You know, you've been invited for interviews, so clearly the school has shown interest in me, but I'm so eager and I can't wait to tell you these things. What would you recommend to any interviewee?
Do you mean to recommend to the students? Like
Yes.
how, in terms
for the,
of his...
for the interview with you as a school, you know, to then make that final assessment about the candidate.
So you mean in terms to like guiding the students to complete his application and how to perform well in his application file, right?
Right, so they
like me as the advisor.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's always actually, it's funny because sometimes students think it's stupid questions, or they think that, yeah, they know how to write a letter of motivation, or we're just talking about letters of recommendation. But actually, they sometimes forget how important it can be in an application file. And it's what I remind them when I interview them and we discuss about again, their story, where they come from, what they want to do, and we discuss the program that could apply, etc. It's more to really understand when we read, or when the selection committee, even myself, when we read the letter of motivation, to really understand, you know, the reason why they're applying for this specific program, and how do they believe that this program will help them achieve their career objective that they have. Because sometimes, and it happens a lot, we receive applications for a program where the letter of motivation could be, we could actually put that to any program that we will offer, and we actually don't really understand, wait, are you applying to marketing? Are you applying to finance? Because when we read the letter of motivation, it's not very clear. It's just talking about himself, maybe what he studied, but we don't really understand why you have chosen this program. Like, show us maybe from what you've studied so far, or maybe the career plan that you may have that is in relation to the reason why you're applying to this program. And also the tips, again, we're talking about letters of recommendation. It's really important. Like Stephen said, sometimes it also depends on the referees. They don't really understand how important it can be and how bad it can look in an application when we can receive a letter that is really well written. We have a lot of information about the student's capabilities and how he performed during the class or the semester. And sometimes we receive just like not even a paragraph. And it happened actually to me that I had students applying from the same school, and I literally had the exact same letter of recommendation, and just the name was changing, which is terrible, because it's actually showing that you don't really know the students. It's not really going to help the students. So this is some tips that we give students when they apply. Of course, it's about transcripts, how you performed, like in your academic background, the GMAT, of course, and GRE, but also letters of motivation and letters of recommendation can have a big impact in your application. So that's what I will really emphasize on and help the student.
Right. So one applicant called 100, another applicant called 1,000, but they both had the same paragraph. Francisco, you've interviewed many individuals, and I'm sure you've seen situations where the application was solid, and then they just knocked it out of the park, and how they came across to you. So you know, advice for that final stage of interview.
Oh, well, I think that's tricky, right? Because you can't really prepare for that. You have to be prepared your whole life for that, right? You actually have to be that person. No, it's not like, going back to your Michael Jordan reference, right? Michael Jordan didn't just show up in the finals. No, he played basketball his whole life. But to that point, I think that some things that really kind of do stand out for me, and just in general, is, and I just, you know, I know this is probably not surprising to anybody on this call, but I think it's important to say it to everybody who's following along. You know, just professionalism goes a long way in this world. You know, just literally the way you present yourself, the way you speak, you know, that you're taking the process seriously, that you've prepared. You know, a lot of times I always tell folks, you know, when folks come to an interview with me and they don't bring notes, that speaks a lot to me. You know, you're going to a business school interview. I would expect that you came with, you know, your notebook, just like I came here to this panel today. You prepared ahead of time. You wrote down questions. You were thoughtful. I think that's another big thing that speaks a lot to me, is good questions, just like you would you would go for a job interview. You know, a lot of times too, like they say, you know, you're also interviewing the school as a part of this interview process. So I want to know that you're being thoughtful about it, that you've thought about it, you've done research about the school. The worst thing for me is when I finish an interview with somebody and I say, do you have any questions? And they say, no, I think I found everything I needed on the website. And I'm like, that's just not possible. So I think that just the way you conduct yourself in the interview, the professionalism, the questions that you ask, and again, just going back to the story, people who really can thread the needle, right, and who can really tell their story, and just really, like, you know, they've researched the program, they've talked to alumni, and they know, like, I want to go to IE, I want to do this program for these reasons, I've talked to X, Y, and Z people, I'm excited to take this professor's class. You know, just that level of detail and preparation and professionalism, for me, is what really makes somebody who has a great application stand out for somebody who, you know, again, might have that 750 on the GMAT, but they show up for the interview and they're like, well, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do, so I guess I'm going to do an MBA, you know? So I think that's kind of the big difference for me personally.
Right. Dan, if we're ever referring to you as Dr. Speaker, if with all of the MS programs at Columbia, and as you look at the curriculum, is there any one class which, yeah, that's a class I would love to follow? And I don't know if you get to audit any of those classes, but is there a class where you look at that and say, hey, that would be fascinating?
Yeah, we have this 6-week MS class in machine learning. and it's taught by an industry guy, and he lets you just free roam as your final. So he kind of gives you this really rigorous background on how to program, what to program, how to write your code, how to run that code, and then at the end of those 6 weeks, he says, "Hey, take a month and get back to me with your final project on anything in the industry." And is it like so? It seems so freeing, you know, to sort of get that background and be able to apply it yourself. It doesn't seem like a typical class. So I've been wanting to audit that for a while. I haven't done it yet. You said your programming languages start with C. Mine starts with A. So I'm a baby in this, but yeah, at some point I would love to take a look at that. There's several, you know. There's a winning strategic capacity class that's taught to the marketing science students. That fascinating look at consulting in the marketing industry. I mean, there's so much stuff that I'd love to take most of them.
Yeah. Well, if there were but willed enough in time, right? And Stephen, I guess there's that added component equally with Columbia, but you know, the business school within Imperial College and everything that the college is doing, whether it's in health and science, technology. Is there much interaction between college and the business school itself?
Yes, there is, and it's something that we're making more of. But what we found that some of the most successful students are the ones that are, you know, really keen to get out there and get networking with the other faculties. And we provide like forums for that to happen. There's an entrepreneurship one, so people can get in teams with people maybe from the medical school or from engineering. You know, so there's lots of people on campus with loads of ideas, and we provide you know, ways for people to get together and discuss those, which often turn into companies and things. But also, you know, there's career clubs that are cross faculties. So if people are interested in a finance career, there might be people in engineering that will come along to that, along with business school people. So there's ways to meet. And also Imperial, I think, has the most clubs and societies of all any UK university, and so there's lots of ways there that, you know, you might be hang gliding or something in days gone by, but there's ways for people to meet there as well. But yeah, it's really the most successful people are the people who are really getting out there, meeting people, and making those connections, including the ones that we provide.
Right. And is there a part of the college that you would like to hang out in? You know, the ones that are making radioactive kryptonite, or
yeah,
is there a part of the schools that I'd love to know more about that? That sounds really cool.
Yeah, well, there's lots. Sometimes if you go to a training course or something, and someone will be saying, "Yeah, I'm from astrophysics," and someone is saying, well, "We're looking for a cure for cancer," and you know, you think business is important too. But you know, yeah, there's lots of amazing stuff going on there. And we visited the wind turbine recently to see how people were using, you know, aerodynamics to design cities and things.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating stuff. So that airplane that lands in Nice airport, and I think you can see that big glass-fronted EDHEC just on the seafront. It's you know, we don't have the same travel opportunities, Sophie. So I want to get to know more about your school. What are some of the initiatives that you've undertaken, both at the admissions team, but also perhaps alumni, and you know, how can people find out more about the different programs through coffee chats, virtual campus visits, and webinars that you give?
Well, obviously, we will have a lot more webinars organized, and even participation to virtual events. There's many ways that the students can find out about EDHEC. Through fairs, of course, but if they jump on the website, there is a page where you have all information about those webinars. We actually have one that I'm hosting next week about scholarships and funding option. So we'll have, I think, webinars every month. You also have virtual visit where you can of the campus, sorry, so you can check that on the website. You also have many places to get information, such as the alumni website, when you can also get in touch with students from the master.edhec.edu, which is the website of our program specifically for masters. There is a chat, so it's called UniBuddy, and you can chat with current students So students that either way are in the second year of the MIM, so they've already experienced the first year at EDHEC doing the gap year now, or students that just join EDHEC this September, so that's students that in their MSc. Then students can also contact us directly. I have students just asking me right away, can I be in touch with a student that, if I have an American saying I want to be in touch with just also an American student that did the same MSc that I want to join, and then I'm happy also to put them in touch together and share the contact details. We have many ambassadors that help us as well with testimonials and videos, so there's so many ways for students to reach out to us, but also to get information from different I'll say different aspects from the website, but also from fairs and from alumni, from chat and from LinkedIn as well, because we don't forget that before students reach out to us, they can also make their own research, and some students just search on LinkedIn and reach out to students by searching students that have applied to EDHEC. So it's also a good way, you know, to find out. And I think it's also best to chat with an alumni, because I haven't, you know, studied, or I'm not in the program. I'm happy to give you information, but it's, I think, best for students to really share the experience that a student has when has gone through by doing the program itself.
Yeah, with that international restriction, sometimes we can take our global mobility for granted, Francisco, and whether it's you know, you studied undergrad at Iberoamericana in Latin America, or you went to school in Indiana, Midwest, and have never had this international experience. I mean, part of this master's opportunity is a unique, structured international experience. So when you have that conversation with someone who's perhaps, you know, had few opportunities to travel, how do you say, hey, seize this opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, I really, and thank you for the question, Matt, because I think it's one of the things that I'm most passionate about is international education. And I just tell people that I tell them, I mean, honestly, I tell them my life story. You know, I'm somebody who pursued an international education, and it changed my professional career. You know, I had a career working in government and local politics in Los Angeles, and I went to go study a master's in international relations at IE because I thought I wanted to work in the European Union. Never thought I would end up heading the New York center of IE University here in New York City. Was definitely not in the plans. But I think I tell people that story because I say, you don't know what is possible for you unless you go out and have these experiences. So I just encourage everybody to pursue international education. It'll really open your eyes and expose you to things that you may not have ever considered before. And that's just really exciting. And, you know, that's not just going for North American candidates going to Europe. You know, if we have anybody, I tell Europeans the same thing, come study in the States, you know, Canadians, go study in China, just, you know, get outside of your comfort zone, go internationally. The impacts it will have on your career are just amazing, and you won't regret it. And you'll just have a really good, fun time also. And you might learn a language and learn something about new cultures, which also is an added bonus.
Right. We managed to go 57 minutes through this webinar with no mention of politics. Now, Dan, Francisco's let the open Pandora's box. He mentioned politics in LA. We're not a political platform, but of course, in a presidential election year. But you are, as international applicants, you know, with Francisco's inspiring word, thinking about the US, you're STEM designated, and, you know, the H-1B opportunities for graduates coming out of Columbia. Just perhaps a final word of, you know, why invest in yourself and take that step?
Yeah, I think, you know, this has been a challenging political time as well as a pandemic time and everything else. For the applicants coming in this year, you know, we offered some deferrals to people that were having trouble with visa stuff. We're offered a global business track, which allows you to be remote and part of your experience here, and then still come back and still get that STEM designation, still get that internship in the summer. We've been able to pivot really strongly given the situations. Hopefully, the political climate will change and these things will cease to be a problem. But those STEM designations are big. You know, they're going to give a student 3 years after they graduate to work in the U.S. if that's what they choose to do. And a lot of students plan to do that. From what they tell me, they come here, they work in the U.S. for a few years, then they're going to go back to their home country. Like Francisco, we really value the international students. and they make up probably 70% of our class. So we really value them. We really like to recruit them. We want them to come have a good experience in New York, and that STEM designation really does help that. And the H-1B thereafter, if that's an experience you want to keep having here in the city, or Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago. There's all these cities in the U.S. that offer fruitful opportunities post-graduation.
Right. Well, I celebrate that international perspective, and thank you to all four of you for what you do for that sort of multicultural perspective, and citizens that will be helping to solve some of the world's thorniest problems. You're creating extraordinary global citizens. So Sophie from EDHEC, Francisco, always great to see you from IE. Stephen, thanks for joining us. I know, Stephen, you're going to have to run. You've got a tight schedule. And Dan from Columbia, New York. Thank you, all four of you, for joining us for the Centerport Festival.
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you
Thank
guys.
you.